It was a terrible shock for people in the tight-knit Jewish community in southwestern France. As students arrived at a Jewish school Monday morning, a gunman pulled up on a motorcycle, opened fire, and killed a rabbi, his two young sons, and a little girl. Coming just days after two nearby shootings of French soldiers of North African and Caribbean descent, the incident led many people, including experts, to assume the perpetrator was a right-wing extremist, opposed to immigration and minority groups. That sort of viewpoint has become more popular in Europe in recent decades, and some of those positions have been incorporated into mainstream politics in several countries, including France. But analysts also noted the possibility that a seemingly opposite form of radicalism, Islamic militancy, could be behind the shootings. That's something sociologist and extremism expert Marat Steren of London's King's College noticed.
I find it quite remarkable that the two versions of the event were considered plausible, although, as you say, the right-wing sort of theory was even more plausible in the eyes of sort of most people.
Many speculated that the tone of the French presidential election campaign, with strident statements about immigration and minority groups, had contributed to an atmosphere that led to the violence. While memorial services mourned the dead, Marat Steren said, in retrospect, the right-wing violence theory should not have been so prominent because such views have a legitimate outlet in France.
You've got a very peculiar situation in which, in my view, right-wing violence is less likely in France, but right-wing extremism is quite legitimate, considered quite legitimate. In my view, in countries where right-wing views are expressed openly, it's least likely that they will be also expressed violently.
The incident at the Jewish school was particularly troubling to many people, largely because 3 of the victims were young children. But that attack was part of a pattern of strikes on Jewish targets in France. Matthew Goodwin of the University of Nottingham speaks via Skype.
One of the strange and also worrying factors about anti-Semitism is that it does cross the divide between politically inspired extremists, such as those on the far right, but also radical, violent Islamists who particularly have grievances over issues around the Middle East and so on.
The man who allegedly carried out the shootings was killed in a gun battle with police early Thursday at an apartment where he had been under siege for more than 30 hours. He was Mohamed Merah, a French citizen of Algerian descent who claimed to follow al-Qaeda's North Africa branch. Authorities say he apparently targeted the soldiers to retaliate for French army activities in Islamic countries, perhaps choosing ethnic Arab soldiers because he saw them as traitors. They believe he may have gone to the Jewish school out of anger over Israeli policies. Whatever the motives, his actions triggered widespread mourning and solidarity among various ethnic and religious communities in France and elsewhere, and some soul-searching about how an open society can guard against the excesses of militant ideologies, regardless of their origins. Al Pessin, VOA News, London.